All right.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go
When
ahead.
you do a transect walk,
Hmm?
is there a protocol? Is there a specific way that you should transect or?
Yeah, that's a good question. For some things, when you're doing a transect walk, there might be a protocol. We don't have a protocol other than what's written on the observation sheet. So let me pull that up and I'll show you. Hang on one second. Let me open another tab so I don't lose my place. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
The perennial problem of not being able to see my screen. All right, so if I go to the observation deck, I'm just gonna open one of the field datasheet things for the yucca that I happen to have up. And there should be a cover sheet on it. Oh, did it not download the cover sheet? It didn't, hang on. Oh boy, I might have to do the whole site sheet. Yep, that's what it's looking like. All right, print field data sheets. Here we go, cover sheet. Dun, dun. All right, so let me see if I can make it bigger. Can you see that?
Mm.
This is the only thing we have for a protocol for doing the walks. So I would say this one here, the W, walking a single pass or transect through your site. If you are doing that, you probably want to look pretty closely to the left or to the right. And again, this obviously applies to animals more than plants because you've already marked your plants. But doing a thorough search for just that individual animal or that group of animals that you're seeking is the best way to do the transect walk so that you're not missing something.
Okay.
There may be other citizen science programs that have something very specific that you're supposed to do when you're doing a transect walk, but this is not one of them. So whatever that means to you, to take a straight line walk through it and give a thorough search on both sides of the path, that's good enough for us for the transect walk.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, because I was if a park became a site and you were gonna do animals, I was wondering if you had to cross it at a certain. That was the only reason I asked.
No.
To
And
try
it's similar to the area search also, but that's more like you're going to go through a big area in the site and zigzag back and forth instead of just taking one pass through.
Okay.
So, yep, no problem. Okay, where's my notes that I made? Here we go. I noticed that there were 2 questions on this document. There was one from Alex, and there was another question that Dan, you had asked on the weekly sign-up sheet. So I wanted to make sure we answered those questions. The first one from you, Dan, was about the third monthly calls, whether or not that changed to a quarterly call, and the answer is yes.
Okay.
We've stopped doing that every month because I stopped getting enough people to join us every month. So we're going to do it quarterly, and we have a little bit of a different structure now. The folks that joined me for that LPL clinic that I hosted in October were all charged with doing an assignment and presenting it on one of the upcoming quarterly calls. So pretty soon I'll have information about what is going to be presented on each of those quarterly calls. And then I'll send you an email a week ahead of the call, and you can get the link and participate as you're able.
I have just one more observation. It's like I would have thought there would have been more activity with the Facebook page. I was like surprised. Although I did get some answered, there were others that I got nothing. Maybe it was a poor question.
No, I mean, I don't know. Well, first of all, with Facebook, I don't know how people see that. If it's in a group, I feel like unless people are really engaged with whatever Facebook group it is, it doesn't show up on their news feed, so they might not have even seen the question. So I don't know how to make that get in front of more people other than having more people post on it. But the listserv, I think for now, I was surprised really that you all got the answers you got, to be honest. Because it's kind of been a mixed bag. Like sometimes people don't really answer those questions, but this time you all must have had really good questions.
Josie had a phenomenal response to her question, which I thought was great. Yes.
Exactly. And Joy Deep did also. A lot of people chimed in on that thing. So I would say if you do have a question moving forward, throw it on the listserv instead, because people are starting to get more engaged with that. And like I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago, we are kind of moving that over to a forum that will be on our website pretty soon. I anticipate that being ready in January. So it's going to be the same thing, only it'll be easier to search the previous answers because it'll look like other forums on other websites where it's kind of like archived and accordion style, and you can read through what people had posted a lot easier than you can. And because now you can look at it, but you have to like log into the listserv and find the date and all that junk. So anyhow, it'll just be better. So it'll be the same kind of platform, or a different platform, but the same concept, if that makes sense. So yeah, good questions. Okay. Anybody have any other questions about any and all things?
I have a question about making observations. At some point, I thought I read somewhere where when you choose your species, you have to have a group of 3 of them. And can you elaborate on that?
I can, yeah. So having more than one of that individual species at a site will give you a better average of what is happening with the phenology at your site, especially if one of those plants is closer to a building or gets more sun or gets more water. It kind of accounts for any microclimates that might be happening in your site. It's not like illegal to not have 3 of them if you don't have 3, or you don't have to go out and buy another tree just because you didn't have it there. But it's just kind of a rule of thumb to choose multiples so that you can kind of compare between those and get the average phenology.
Okay, can you add on to that? Should you have them in different spots so you don't have 3 plants together? Because a stress factor on any kind of plant could trigger a phenotype-based response.
Yep, sure.
So they should be, that would be the protocol.
I don't think it matters one way or the other, but yeah, if you were looking to compare the phenology and really get an average, I would say spacing them out is probably a good idea.
Okay.
Some of the plants you may have also noticed that you can add as a patch. So if it's an annual plant where you're not going to be like the thing dies at the end of the season and then a new plant grows the next year, you would monitor that as a patch instead of monitoring that one individual plant through time.
So when you're making your observations, you're just picking one of those plants to make the observation, or are you looking at all of them?
You're picking 3 individuals. Is that what you mean? So you'll look at that one individual independent of the other 2. So you're making the observations on the individual plant.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Anybody have any other questions?
I just wanted to clarify on the due dates.
Sure.
So there's 2 major things that are due on Friday of next week. And that's the work plan, is the planning worksheet.
Yeah, there's actually 3 things that are due next week. So it's the creative piece. This is the 22nd we're talking about, I think, right? Yeah, the 22nd. The creative piece, the phenophase photo guide, so that guide where you have the pictures and the phenophases.
Which is okay if it's not finished.
It's okay if it's not finished. I want you to have at least 2 pictures if you can, but do your best. And then the logic model spreadsheet with the outcomes and all that stuff that you've been working on.
Okay, thank you.
And if you upload them on Friday, then everybody can have a chance to at least take a peek at them before the Monday call. so that people can just see what you all did, and we'll have a conversation, and people will share their creative piece. We usually take some time to have people just show us what they made for their creative piece on the call. So that's the plan. So you kind of have a look at everybody's before we.
So that'll be, so that's a call the following week?
Right. It's on this, let's see, no, the 25th.
Okay.
Monday the 25th.
Okay.
Is the last call.
Got it. Thank you.
Or Tuesday morning, whichever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Real quick, the business card template.
I asked Sarah to make that, so she's not done yet.
Okay.
I didn't forget.
I got a headache looking for it.
I know. She will post it on that host a workshop page, which is
Okay. Host an event, host a workshop.
Host an event. It's on.
You got to get up pretty early now. I'm learning this whole
I
thing.
know. You're gonna be leading this class. You don't need me anymore.
Yeah, I do, because I'll be off. I'm like an administrator. Shiny things and I'm gone.
Right.
See that car?
So the other thing of note, actually, that I did just post this morning is Alex had asked me for a PowerPoint template that has some of the NPN stuff on there. So I threw just a blank template here in Google Slides and also in PowerPoint, whichever you prefer to use. And it's got some of the basic stuff that I usually put in our talks, like once it loads, I'll show you. Like a slide with the logo that I talk about. These are like our main strategic planning outcomes. And then, you know, just some file footage here for you to use. Some pictures, a map of our spring leaf index. This is the slide that I usually talk about, Nature's Notebook. So you can just use this and edit it if you want to. Some numbers, this is what we typically put in when we do a talk. We usually look up the most recent numbers from the data dashboard that you can fill that in, and then a map of the distribution. So anyhow, you're welcome to just start with this if you want. And I think I have the master slide set so that all the, like if you add a new, insert a new slide, it'll look like this kind of thing. So anyway, I made that for Google and for PowerPoint, whichever you feel like using. But remember, you can always use any of the PowerPoints that are on that host an event page in this section here. Or we also have links to some of the ones that we've presented. I have to upload the ones that I did in October. I didn't upload them yet to our workshop archive, but you can download anything that we have in there. And use that too. It just downloads in a PowerPoint usually. So there's that. So keep in mind this page is there. We also have these, oh, sorry, I'm like making you seasick. We also have like the brochures and the welcome pages and all that stuff that you can use if you're doing a workshop. Yep. And then the link to the curriculum activities that I have is this Nature's Notebook activities table. So if you wanted to do a lesson, use one of our lesson plans or something from here, that's where that all is, under Educate. Okay. And then while I have the website open, the question that Alex had was about data quality. We have a whole page on data quality. So I just linked it there in the notes. And this is on the National Phenology Network website, so USA-NPN.org/data/quality. It's on this tab here. But we have all the information you could possibly ever want to know about how we validate our observational data. She was asking in reference to the question that we talked about last week, where I mentioned if there was a big group of students that were entering data and some people say yes and the other people say no, the data gets flagged. So that's just one of our mechanisms for validating the data quality. And because we have all of these, I guess they would be called tests in place, that we don't want people to worry about, well, I guess I shouldn't answer these questions because I'm afraid I'll mess it up. We want people to enter their data. We want students to enter their data because we have these checks in place to kind of test the data behind the scenes. So don't let that stop you from participating with any group of people. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? All right. So I did finish most of the grades for this week that have been in there from Friday. I was in there this afternoon. The only thing I didn't do is I still have to go back and check everybody's third observation that you made. So you might not see a grade for that yet. But I will do that probably before the end of the day. Maybe I'll do that while you all are in your small groups. But that's the last thing I think I have left that I saw on there. A couple people have already submitted some of their deliverables, and a few folks had questions about their PhenoPhase photo guide and the photo credits. So make sure that you do have photo credits on there if you're pulling photos from the Creative Commons or Wikimedia Commons. And if you can't fit what the person wants you to credit the photo as on the photo, you can put that on the bottom of the page and just have like a little footer above or below the last picture there of the fruits, and just, you know, say a link to Wikimedia Commons where you found that. Because some of them I think will be good enough for us to post on our website, and our data manager Ellen will take a look at them after the class, and the ones that are complete enough we'll probably post. So we may reach out to you after the class is over to ask if that's okay, or if you have any updated photos or something, if there's something we need you to fix. So keep that in mind. Any other questions about the deliverables, the creative piece or logic model?
I still don't know what the creative, it encompasses a lot of things, and I don't even know what I'm doing.
Well, I thought you were going to do a PowerPoint for training your volunteers or something.
I don't do PowerPoint.
Okay, then I thought you were going to give me a workshop
I thought I was going to
agenda.
get away with an article in my in the Manchester Patch.
That's not a bad thing, actually. That was a nice article.
Yeah, but it didn't go nowhere.
What do you mean?
I didn't
Is
get
that the one I thought?
one response.
Oh,
88,000 hits a month, and I got to
know.
call them up and go, listen, there's no sense me spending my time writing for you guys if I'm not getting
right. If nobody's even going to comment on it.
You know? Yeah.
Well, that's actually a good point. I mean, that I think was a nice thing that you could use as a creative piece, because you really articulated what you were trying to do to try to recruit people. So I could get behind that.
I'll do something else. There's certain things that I expect, and then when they don't happen, it's like I'm amazed. I would have thought I would have gotten at least 3 people. You know, the 3 Stooges would have showed up. You know, minimum. Right. You know, but they
now
didn't.
You know how I feel when nobody answers a post on the listserv.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh
my goodness. All right. So, all right. Any other questions about any of that stuff? Should we move on?
Stuff, but Lorianne, are you going to get the Google documents where we were able to post questions? Are you going to go to that? I did post a question on the Google meeting.
This one, you mean?
Yes.
Did you post one on here? Let me see. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that question.
Oh, this one. No, this is something else. This is Dan.
No, if you scroll up a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Right there.
Oh, this one. Sorry, I didn't see that. Okay.
Okay.
Let's answer it. When requesting a phenology group, we had to mention a sponsoring institution. I'm wondering about the definition of institution here. I could list University of Louisiana, but I'm not sure if I need to seek further okays. No, I think that's fine. You can use whatever organization you are affiliated with. You don't have to get permission from them, as long as they know you're going to mark plants. That's kind of the big thing. And there's no strings attached at all.
Right. Okay, so I was just wondering about that because, you know, because I want to roll it as a program and then have, you know, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife come into state fair, you know, Fish and Wildlife come in, and schools come in, master naturalists come in. So if this were to be the whole group, and then will the umbrella still be under my university?
Well, you know what I would say? You might want to call it something that people would recognize if they're looking for it, right? So you probably want, I think, didn't you put, I can't remember if you already submitted it.
Phenology program or something. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine. Yep.
But still house it under the University of Louisiana Monroe. When I requested for the group, That's what I did. And
Oh,
that's what
okay.
crossed my mind saying that, wait, I mean, if I really want to, down the road, I'm seeing this, several people take it and roll with it. So for now, should it be under the university and then gradually, the Northeast Phenological, program takes over?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. So what I would say, whatever would buy you the most social capital and recognition for people to find it is fine. And we can always flip it later.
Okay.
Too. Like if you had it affiliated with the university and then you didn't want to do that, you didn't want to call it that anymore, we could change it. Sarah can just edit that.
Right. And again, as you mentioned, in terms of publicity, I think if I have it under the university, I think it's going to get the most momentum.
Yeah, right.
For now, I think I'm going to keep it like that.
Okay.
And another thing is, when we were doing the phenology group requisition, we had to put in certain trees that my groups will observe. And, so is this, as the program grows, are we restricted to just those trees saying that, or how is this information used? Because down the road, is there a search that somebody says, what is Northeast Louisiana, phenology program watching? And there are just 2 trees, and then actually we're doing more.
Yeah, what we hope to have is we're going to take that information and populate it on a partner profile page eventually. And so people can just read about what you're doing and you'll be able to edit that at any point. So you can go back and say, oh, we're not monitoring the oaks anymore. We're monitoring this or something. So it's just kind of, it was initially designed just for us to get an idea of what you all are interested in observing. But then you're definitely not restricted to whatever you put in there. And eventually, like I said, it'll be kind of publicly visible so people can get a sense of that. Or if there's somebody that's regionally near you and they say, oh, you're monitoring the same thing we're monitoring, we should collaborate in some way, then they'll have that information available. So.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. And hopefully we'll have those partner profiles done sometime in 2020. It's kind of at the top of the list, but not at the very, very top of the list. I think we're shooting to have it sometime maybe in the spring or summer, if all goes well.
Great.
Awesome. Okay. Did I miss any other questions over here? I think I got them all. Yeah, we talked about all these things. Excellent. All right, so I thought we could go into small groups today and talk a little bit more about engaging those underrepresented audiences. The folks that had already answered that question on Canvas had some really good ideas, I think, that are bubbling, and I was going to go back and comment on some of those in the discussion. But I thought maybe you all might take a few minutes to elaborate on what you posted. Here at the National Phenology Network, we have been thinking pretty strategically about how we can engage audiences that do not automatically show up to do citizen science, and thinking about why that might be and what are some of the inherent biases in the work that we're doing that might prevent people from participating in something like Nature's Notebook or citizen science. And so I think probably what I will wind up doing is sharing some of that background information on one of our monthly call or our quarterly calls, the ones that we were talking about earlier. That'll probably be part of it. But we do want to hear from folks out there now who those underrepresented audiences are in their community. And if you have any ideas to share about how you might already be engaging some of those groups, or ideas about what the barriers are, those are some of the things that I saw popping up in the conversation. And when we say underrepresented audience, we mean all kinds of things. We mean, ability, access, so people that maybe are differently able, or people that are in a different economic group, or persons of color, or younger people. So whatever it is that is groups of people that don't automatically just show up when you throw your flyer out there. I think most of us probably experience the older white communities of people that just show up to participate in citizen science because they have the time and the resources and the inclination. So thinking about that, how you can make your program a little bit more accessible to others, is really where we want to see our programs going in the future. There's been just an ever so slight amount of research in the citizen science world on how to do that. So we're interested in hearing from you all to see what your ideas are. Does that resonate with anybody, or does anybody have any questions about that?
No, I think if you keep outreach, if you're doing like at the public libraries to do a quick talk, just an introduction, I think when you say genealogy, people go, what? Like that. But once you start to explain that it's just the course of natural events that you can relate other natural events to, it's like, oh, and you go, have you ever noticed? And they go, oh, yeah, it's totally different. I think when you say citizen science or you say genealogy, it's like, whoa, that's above me. That's, you know what I mean? That's right up there with rocket science. I don't know if I can do, you know what I mean? Whereas if you go, you know, if you can watch a bird fly across the sky, you can do genealogy.
Yeah, so that's a great example of using accessible language to engage people in your community, especially if they're not already science-minded, right? If you're doing a public library presentation, you might have all kinds of people that are there to hear what you have to say. Or how do you get them there in the first place? Because if your talk was labeled phenology and they didn't want to show up because they didn't know what it was, you might need to think about calling it something different. So yeah, that's exactly the stuff I'm talking about, and it's really related to the community engagement piece that we have for our assignments this week, thinking about who are the other organizations in your community that you could partner with, who are the people that are doing this kind of work to engage underrepresented audiences or similar work to what you're doing, so that you can, you know, advertise what you're doing or get more volunteers through them as well. And just thinking about ways that you can share program ideas so that there are opportunities for people to work on something collaboratively, I think is a really big part of being engaged in your community. So we'll go into breakout groups and talk about that a little bit more, and then maybe we can definitely put some notes on this document for folks who aren't here today, and we can continue the conversation in Canvas on that question that I have for this week. And then, of course, you're also welcome to talk about if you have any questions with each other that you want to ask about the final deliverables that we are working on, those 3 things. That would be a space to do that too. So we can take 15 or 20 minutes in the small groups, and then we'll come back together and see what you all have come up with, all your brilliant ideas. Sound good? Okay, let's see. We'll do breakout rooms. I think we've got 7 people. Yeah, so there'll be 1 room of 4 and 1 room of 3. And I'm gonna open the rooms, and then I will pop back and forth like I usually do. So I'll see you in a few. Anyway, what are the brilliant ideas you have for engaging underrepresented audiences, and who are these audiences? Anybody wanna say a couple things?
Well, Dan said he was going to knock on everybody's door, so I think that was a good idea.
Okay, good. That's a good start. Nice.
And Joy Deep's going to stick his neck out and go to a community center in lower SES community and do some impromptu botany talks, and
that's a good idea.
See how many people he can get engaged. So
that sounds like
but
a
I
good
want
idea.
to add something to it. I think Adrian put something a nice spin to it, saying that while you're talking in that, it might be nice to just mention the trees and then maybe get them interested right there outside that center. So I really like that idea.
Yeah, just go outside and don't do like a professional kind of talk inside, right?
Sure.
Is that what you mean? Just like stand outside and start pointing at the trees?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. What else? Anybody else have good ideas?
One thing that we sort of just mentioned at the very end was maybe reaching out to either community groups or community leaders that will have some influence with maybe underserved groups and getting them on board, and then they would be able to get more of those communities on board as well.
I think that's a great point. Making those relationships between the organizations or community groups, I think, is critical, because if somebody from that community is interested in that, it'll be easier to recruit other people from that community because they can see themselves there as a participant. So yeah, that's a good idea. What else? Did anybody come up with different kinds of underrepresented audiences? other than like economic or persons of color?
Roland talked about physical handicap, physical challenges. That was, I think, pretty neat.
Hmm. Yeah, what
Yeah.
are some things you might do to make the trail more accessible? Do you have ideas for that, Sue Ellen?
We already, actually, Three Valley has already built a boardwalk that goes into the woodland area, and they used students from Miami University that were volunteering, community members, and then some of the classes, the environmental ed classes, the students that wanted to be involved in that, they came in and we fed them and praised them for their hard work. And then we had a donor that actually donated about $8,000, and we were able to pour a parking lot that is right up to the boardwalk.
Nice.
And there will be 3 handicaps. It's just wide open right now, but it's going to be labeled for 3 handicap spots and for 1 or 2 just general parking spots. So that's how that's been addressed. Again, just goodwill, community involvement.
Yeah. Do you think you might need to do anything to sort of bring the plants to the person? Like if they couldn't go close enough to the plant to see?
Yeah, Adrian and I actually went out there Sunday and we took a look, and we were thinking about what natives we would be looking at along with the non-natives. And we identified a couple things: buckeye trees and snake root. And snake root is everywhere. And so that is definitely easy to access and easy to see. So, and then we'll just kind of build on that. And then we also received a $10,000 grant for Feed a Bee, and they put in a lot of pollinator friendly plants, and those are also along that boardwalk. So hopefully we'll evolve into that as well.
Yeah.
So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Nice work on the grants too.
Yeah, well, that's Three Valley.
Yeah, that's great.
They're a pretty cool land trust.
Yeah,
I'm
great.
lucky to be associated with them. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I got a question real quick for Lorian. Is there any seed grant from NPN?
No, I wish we had money at this point. We've talked about that in the past, but our funding all comes from the federal government right now, and they sort of frown on us
No,
sending that out secondarily.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a small pocket of money that,
No.
Fennel Trails could apply for, and then and maybe not for pizzas or something, but at least if there's any other like tree identification guides or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely something that we want to try to do. So it might be something that we eventually could write a grant for to then hand out funding to other entities or organizations.
Right. And on the other side of it, as well, I really hope this is going to grow. And as it grows, is there any point in, is there any, I guess, well, if you ask for membership fees, like a couple dollars or pass the hat around, because for me, it gets very difficult to channel university money.
Right.
Even my own professorship endowment money, I cannot channel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we have that same problem too.
So you're right. So I was just wondering what might be like, small things we can take care of, like pizza, okay, fine. But if there's like, we're talking about pins and we're talking about others,
right.
I'm just wondering if there are, maybe go to the foundation and look for donors. And
yeah, that's a good idea. If you are connected to a university, there may be access to a foundation where they can give you a list of people that would be willing to donate, small amounts of money for projects like that, because those foundations typically look for a very specific type of project.
Right.
And that if you could identify what the materials would be that you need or something, then they may be able to fund something like that. Some of the other groups that are out there often work with a local friends group, if they have one, or a nonprofit. And they maybe have kind of a line item in their annual fundraising plan that's related to, helping support some of the programs that they might support. So that could be another idea, or having people raise money through the friends group for that, for your program to be successful. Because we're not really talking about a lot of money either. I mean, it's pretty
Sure.
Nice to have a lot of money, but
Right.
you just to buy some supplies. I mean, you could
Mhm.
probably do a lot with, $1,000 or $3,000
Yeah.
to get it going for
And
sure.
you're right, twisting hands will work because I've gotten about $10,000 commitment from the friends of Black Bag for establishing a butterfly corridor and all of that. So you're right, but
Nice.
I don't know if I can twist their arm again.
Again, I know if you've already asked them, you've already hit
You're
them up
right,
for
and
something,
again
you
saying,
might need
hey,
to
we
wait a
have
couple
a
years.
project.
Right.
But I see your point there. Maybe I can reach out to other organizations as well.
Yeah, that's another great thing to try to do if you are going to set it up as kind of a phenology trail where there are multiple organizations
Right.
that people could
Rotary
collaborate
Club
on.
could do something. The
Mhm.
Kiwanis Club could do something.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of those in my mind right now.
yeah, those are good
Going up to that.
places to try.
Mhm.
Good ideas. Nice. And they may also have different audiences that you hadn't already thought of too. Maybe they
Sure.
have outreach to other types of underrepresented groups in your community.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
And
Good.
I don't know if you have an Isaac Walton group there in Louisiana, but they've been very
Yeah.
active in habitat restoration and other projects, and they usually fund pretty nicely. So that might be something to look into as well.
I missed the first part, Sue Ellen. What group
Oh,
did you say?
Isaac Walton.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I'll
if
look
we
into it.
see that stuff, we'll send it to the listserv, but we don't
Yeah.
always catch all of those things either. So if people want to
Right.
share, feel free to throw it on the listserv.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, we have a minute and a half left. Any other words of wisdom for our friends that are not on the call today?
It's cold. Stay indoors.
Right. That's what I hear. Everybody else is cold except for us. In the 70s here, so sorry.
Armando, this is unusual.
Yeah.
How cold is it in Louisiana?
Sorry?
How cold is it down there?
Too cold to be comfortable.
Like
I mean,
40s, 50s.
Today
Yeah.
I have a student in my class who is from Illinois, and he was there. He was just wearing his hoodie, and you see the other students. They're all in their parkas, and I'm thinking, wait a second, this tells me where you're from.
Right.
It got pretty cold.
People's tolerance is a little different.
I think in the morning it was -5 Celsius, and then I think in the day I think it went to about 1 or 2 degrees Celsius.
That's crazy for there.
Yeah,
That's
it
never
is
that
for
cold there in
Louisiana.
Louisiana. That is really cold.
But no snow? You didn't get any
No,
of the snow?
no snow.
Okay, that's good.
That's good.
We got what, Sue Ellen, 2 or 3 inches?
Oh my gosh.
We got at least 3 here. On my deck, we
Wow.
had at least 3 inches. I was hoping for a snow day, but
Me too.
Right. Not quite enough, huh?
I got a quick question
Freezes at night.
for Joe Deep. Okay,
Yes.
when you figure out growing degree days in warmer temperatures and you guys don't get down to, a chill factor or below 0 or below 32, how do they figure growing degree days like in Louisiana and like Southern California? Do they use them or they don't use them?
I'm not sure. I'll pass the question to Lorianne.
Yeah, the way that we do it is we don't necessarily use them in the same way that you use them for planting things, but we can measure the accumulated heat from, the beginning of the year. And there are certain things like insects that we definitely still have that track growing degree days pretty easily.
Okay, because I put that thing on where the schedule is for Ohio State. It was Ohio State, and they have the species and the parameters
Right.
for growing degree days, and it's like it's 5 pages long. I don't know. And then I started thinking after I was looking at it, I'm going like, what does Joe Deep and the people like in Southern California do if they don't have this? You know
We
what I
let
mean?
the others take care of it.
Right. Exactly.
All of a sudden, the bugs just show up with suitcases and say, "Oh, we're here."
Yeah. Exactly. That's a good question, though. I like it.
Okay, so I'm just going to tell everybody, phenology is with growing degree days is easier in the Northeast than it is in most parts of the country.
Right. Because you might not know when something is happening.
Yeah.
A lot of our stuff is actually tied to moisture content instead of temperature. So that makes it a little different too, because the temperature is pretty consistent.
I think
So,
Joseph did that. Yeah.
yeah. So our phenology is usually cued by that instead of temperature.
So
Depends on the
this
thing,
is the
though.
good thing about talking to other, because it's like, you know what I mean? I would take growing degree day for granted and never even think about Joe Deep or
Right. It's
Josie
true.
or anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, you know, what's the big thing I can do an event by do a 10-day
I can see how cold
on
it
the
is.
weather forecast. I can run it. You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
don't worry about the cold. It's not. Everybody
Dan,
up here
you're
in Northeast
freezing
is
up.
half-assed.
Your video is
You know?
freezing up. It's cold.
Right. That's what's happening. It's too cold.
You know what I mean? Drink more whiskey.
And with that, I think we should end our evening. Nice.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
All right, friends. Have a
great
good week. I won't see you next week on the call, but I will see you in 2 weeks. So I will send a reminder. Good luck working on your stuff.
Okay, great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Night.
Bye.
Stay warm.
Yes.